Hello students. Today we're going to look at the next section and talking about rotations especially, but also in all kinds of transformations, is congruence and transformations. What we're looking to find out is after I do a transformation, which could be a translation, a reflection, or a rotation, are the figures still congruent? Well, first we need to know what congruent means. So congruent, and you need to write this definition down, congruent is same shape and same size. It doesn't matter which way it's oriented. It could be turned to the sideways or whatever, but it has to be exactly the same shape and exactly the same size. I have three examples of triangles over here, purple, blue, and orange. And you can tell probably that purple and blue are congruent. They may not be turned the same way, but I can match them up so that they would be exactly the same triangle. Now if I look at orange, orange looks like it's the same shape, but it is not the same size. So we can say that those are not congruent, but purple and blue are congruent. So now we're going to look at a rotation or a translation or a reflection to see if we still have congruency between the two figures. So here I have a coordinate plane, and I have my blue triangle in quadrant number 2, and I have my purple triangle in quadrant number 1. Well, what did I have to do to the purple triangle, to the blue triangle to get it to the purple? Your choices are rotate, reflect, or translate. Well, I didn't translate it because translating is just moving or sliding across, and I didn't reflect it because then it would be the shorter end would be here. So this must be a rotation of 90 degrees clockwise. Well, in that rotation of 90 degrees clockwise, did I maintain congruence? Are these triangles still exactly the same size? Well, yes, they are. So I could say that yes, this is a 90-degree rotation clockwise, and the figures are congruent. So when would it be different? Well, that's a great question. I'm so glad you asked. Because it could be different if I had this. Now, that looks like it's a reflection from blue to orange, but the problem is orange is not the same size as blue. So yes, it might be a reflection, but these two figures are not congruent, so I really can't say it's a reflection because they are not exactly the same size figure. So you're going to have to differentiate when is the transformation congruent or when does the transformation lead to non-congruency or just similar figures. So let's look at something else. Now, here's a confusing thing. How did I get from blue to purple? Well, you're thinking, I could have rotated. Well, if I rotated, the orientation would be different. So in this case, I have two transformations that I had to do to get from blue to purple. The first one I could have done is reflected it across the y-axis. And then after I reflected it across the y-axis, I translated it down. It looks like about, I'm going to guess 8 places, but I didn't count specifically. So this one would be a reflection with a translation, but I still maintained congruency because they're still the same size and same shape. So now we're going to move into you can have more than one transformation in order to get from one shape to a different one. And you've got to be able to tell which one. Now I could also say that this is a translation first. I first translated and then I reflected, and both of those would be right. So I could say first reflection and then translation, or I could say translation and then reflection, and either one of those would be right. So the goal for what we're doing now is just figuring out which transformations were used to get from one shape to the next. And the first shape is typically called the preimage, and the second shape is called the image. Sometimes we call that the original and the new, but you'll also might see it as preimage, which is the original figure, and then the image, which is the image after it has been transformed by either rotation, reflection, or translation. So here's the next example that I'm looking at. How did I get from the blue triangle, which is my preimage, to purple? Well, Think about it just a second. What I did was, first of all, I rotated it so I could change the orientation. And when I rotated it, what would happen is it would end up right here. Well, it doesn't end up right there. What happens is it's lower, so that means I also translated it after I rotated it. And I translated it, looks like I went down about 3 spaces. Okay? So, again, we've got to be able to figure out, how did I get from one image to the next by either rotation, reflection, or translation, and then which other transformation did I do? So in this case, rotation, 90 degrees clockwise, and a translation down 3, and you're going to need to be able to write the algebraic expressions for each one of those transformations. So here's what I want you to do for your practice problem. What I'd like for you to do is, on your paper, draw a simple coordinate plane, just the x-axis and the y-axis. You don't need all those other little lines. And I'd like you to take the capital letter T, and you can put the capital letter T wherever you want to, and then I want you to use 2 transformations to show me where T would end up after those 2 transformations. You can either use rotation, reflection, or translation. But I want you to draw the T somewhere and then draw the second T somewhere else and tell me how you got there. Did you use a translation, a rotation, or reflection? And you got to use 2 of those. Okay? Do that with a capital T. Take a picture of it and then submit it using the turn in button through Edmodo.